Alright guys, so we all know that IXDAO do some interesting watches. Well, this is their latest piece, so is that going to continue the trend? And more importantly, is it actually any good? So this is actually homaging something that I've not seen before. It's the Hand-Heart Pioneer. So if you're aware of that, you're probably going to know the kind of stuff to expect with this, but obviously we're going to go into details, as there's some interesting stuff going on with this, starting with a name. So depending on where you actually get this from, it's going to vary slightly. So I got this from their official website, and on there they're calling it the IXDAO Aviator. But if you get it from their official AliExpress store, they're referring to it as the Peregrine Falcon. But from what I've been told, that official AliExpress store isn't actually official. The only official place to get it is from their website. I've used that store before, I've not had any issues with it, but from what I've been told, it's just not official. So I just thought I'd clear that up. So when it comes to the pricing, I'm going to talk about the pricing on the website. So it's coming in at $219, which is about £162 and about 187 euros. And for you guys in the US, that does actually include all the different tariffs and customs, all that's covered. At least according to what it says on the website anyway. I'll leave a link to it on AliExpress as well, so you can compare the prices though. So this is everything you're going to get in the package. So you get a branded spring bar removal tool, which is always handy to have. Then you have this little wallet with the branding on. It's actually quite nice. So you've got the warranty card and the instructions in there. You probably could actually use it as a wallet. And then obviously the only other thing in there is the watch. So we'll get all this out of the way and get right down into it. And here it is. So it's a really nice blue Panda, this one. But if you're not keen on this, they do have a few different other ones. They have a white Panda, a reverse Panda, and also a green one. So if you're liking this design, hopefully one of those colours will appeal to you. Just bear in mind that the white and the reverse one are matte finishes, whereas this blue one, as you can see, isn't, and I think the green is the same. But before we get into that properly, first of all, let's go over the dimensions. So we've got a diameter of 39mm, thickness of 11.8, lug width of 20, then the all-important lug to lug is coming in at 47.5, and then when it comes to the weight on this supplied FKM rubber strap, that's coming in at 85 grams. So pretty nice dimensions overall, I think. So let's start off by taking a closer look at that strap, because it is an interesting option to have with a pilot style watch. So we've got the branded buckle there, brushed with polished chamfers. And then when it comes to these keepers, we've got one semi-fixed and then one floating. And then you can see those rivets on the back, as well as quick release. So if you do want to swap it out, you can do quickly and easily. And then there's the front side of those rivets. Not something I've seen on a rubber strap before, but I think it looks good. Now moving on to the case pack, and you can see we've got a pretty cool design on this. So I'm assuming based on the name, that is a Peregrine Falcon. And then we've got a few specs on there. So the fact that it's Chronograph, 100 meter water resistance, 316L stainless steel, and then it is a screw down case pack as well. Now moving on to the side profile, and you can see we've got that nice sign crown there with the IXDAO logo. And then slightly different than usual with those pushers. The one on the right is actually blue, matching the dial colour, and then the one on the left is just polished, unsigned. You can also see we have actually got some little polished details on the lugs, and also on the bottom of the case, and then obviously that really nice bezel as well, which matches the look of that onion style crown. And then we've got that top hat style crystal, which we'll be checking in a bit if it is sapphire or not. But before we do that, first of all let's take a closer look at the dial. And what's probably going to jump out to you immediately is the fact that we don't actually have a run in seconds, which is a bit disappointing. So with those sub-dials, we've got the 60-minute one at the 9 o'clock, and then at the 3 o'clock, unfortunately, we've got that 24-hour. And I'm sure you guys are like me, where you're not really keen on that. It's kind of useless complication. But the dials themselves are nicely done. So we've got those white hands in there, and they are also lumed, so that is nice. And we will be checking the lume in a bit. And now that we're zoomed in a bit, you can also see it's a fully printed dial, so nothing applied. And we've kind of got that fauxtina colour on the indices and also the hands. When it comes to that chrono hand though, on this particular version, it is blue, so it kind of blends into the dial a little bit. With some of the other versions, they have a contrasting hand, so that does stand out a bit more. So you might want to decide which one you go for based on that maybe. I think perhaps it would have been better if they'd used that same fauxtina colour, or perhaps white, just to make it contrast a bit. But let me know if you agree or not. So the only text we have on the dial is this slightly odd check altitude. Yes, it's a pilot style watch, but that is a little bit odd. And then either side of that 6, we've got IXDAO made. And you can also see that little bit of distortion you get around the edge of the crystal as well. And speaking of that crystal, now let's check out if it is actually sapphire or not. And there's only one way we're going to be able to test this, and that is with the, you guessed it, trusty Diamond Selector 2. And yep, we have got sapphire crystal, so that's good to see. So now let's get onto this movement, talk about this in a bit more detail. You might have already figured out which movement it's using. If you haven't though, it's the VK64, so that's a mecha quartz movement. So if you just unscrew the crown, nice grippy crown, as I said, onion style. Then if I pop it out to the first position, we do actually have a ghost date, which is a bit unfortunate. So pop it out again, and then we can change the time. And then if we pop that back in, easy to screw back down again. And then we'll get on to the actual chrono function. So use the top pusher to start it, and then this is where the mecha part comes in with the mecha quartz, because you kind of get an almost smooth sweep, or at least it mimics it anyway. And then obviously we stop it again using the same pusher, and then the bottom one will reset and it'll snap back. And you can see with the alignment on that, that's spot on, no issues there. And you can probably also notice we've got that mark on the top of the bezel, and that's because this bezel does actually move. So I'll show you that now. So it's actually got a 120 click unidirectional bezel. So when it comes to the grip, it's okay, it's not the best. Got a nice clicky action though. No backplay. And it's only really an issue in terms of grip if you've got slightly sway hands. Then when it comes to the alignment of that, got to zoom in and you can see that's spot on, so no issues there either. So now it's time to check out the Lume and see if the photina on this particular one I have is going to be an issue. So on the listing it actually says it's BGW9, but I'm pretty sure that obviously just applies to the other versions. This one is clearly not ice blue, it's more of a green, so it's either C3 or something similar. But obviously it's mixed with something else because we have that photina, and that's fairly obvious from the Lume profile as well. So the hands are clearly brighter than the indices, although that is somewhat to be expected with it being a fully printed dial. But you can see we have got a Lume on those sub-dials on the hands and also on that chrono hand as well. But the question as always is, what is the longevity like? So let's speed this up now and find out. So initially, not too much of a change, but the longer it goes on, you are going to notice that those indices do fade more than the hands do. But even the hands on the sub-dials are actually hanging on quite well, considering how small they are. So in terms of the hands at least, it's usable Lume, not the best I've seen, but in terms of photina, it's better than you'd probably expect. It just would have been nice if they'd managed to get a little bit more on that dial though, but I imagine the non-photina ones will be a lot better. So now, all that's left to do is go over the pros and cons, show you what it's like on wrist, and then you can make up your mind whether you want to pick one of these up or not. And here it is on my 7-inch wrist. So I think it looks really good. And I'm really happy I went with the blue one as well, despite that photina. I think the matte dials on the white and the black version are just a little bit boring. This is just something a bit different. So for me it was between this one or the green. And speaking of interesting stuff, another interesting thing is having that FKM rubber strap with those rivets in still. Wears nicely, no issues with that whatsoever. And again, I think it suits the watch. It definitely shakes things up a bit in terms of pilot watches. Wears nicely on wrist as well with that compact lug to lug. Would have liked to have seen a bit more curvature to the lugs though, just to help it conform a bit better. But other than that, it wears nicely, not too thick either, despite having that top hat sapphire crystal. I love the way the light catches that bezel as well, and those few little polished details. I also like that design on the case back as well, I think that's pretty cool. But now let's get on to the issues I have with this, because there are a few. First one is probably going to be the movement. I do like a mecha quartz, but I'm just not keen on that 24-hour sub-dial. But then I'm not really sure what you'd replace it with instead. If you have any suggestions, let me know down in the comments. Another one that might annoy people is that text at the bottom, that check altitude. So yeah, it is a little bit weird, but I guess it's kind of in keeping with the theme of the watch at least, with it being a pilot style one. The only other issues I have are ones specific to this colour version. So the fact that we've got photina, so the Lume isn't quite as strong as it should be, and then that chrono hand being in blue, so it kind of blends into the dial a lot of the time. But those are things I was aware of when I chose this colour, so I can deal with that. And if you can't, obviously, you probably want to go for another colour. So, all that being said, would I recommend this watch? If you like the look of it, and if you can deal with pretty much the movement issues, then yeah, definitely. So if you're interested in picking one up, don't forget to check out the links in the description, so you can compare the prices and see where the best one is. But if this one isn't for you, I'll leave a link to the playlist of the other IXDAO watches I've checked out so far, and maybe one of those will be more to your taste. But But that's it for this one, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.